Hello everyone, I am Mrs. Esther Messi. Today we will study the second chapter of Civics, the making of the Constitution. In the previous chapter of Civics, we have noted that in a democracy, the rulers are not free to do what they like. There are certain basic rules that the citizens and the government have to follow. All such rules together are called Constitution. As the supreme law of the country, the Constitution determines the right of citizens, the power of the government, and how the government should function. In this chapter, we ask some basic questions about the constitutional design of a democracy. These are: why do we need a constitution? How are constitutions drawn up? Who designs them and in what way? What are the values that shape the constitution in democratic states? Once the constitution is accepted, can we make changes later as required by the changing condition? One recent instance of designing constitution for a democratic state is that of the South Africa. We begin this chapter by looking at what happened there and how the South Africans went about this task of designing their constitution. Then we turn to how the Indian constitution was made, what its foundational values are, and how it provides a good framework for the conduct of citizens' life and that of the government.
Now let's look at why India became a democracy. India's parliamentary system, which has functioned for 65 years with only a brief interruption in the mid 1970s, is generally accepted as uniquely robust and durable among developing nations. Naturally, the issue of why India remained democratic while so many countries succumbed to dictatorship interests historians and social scientists. It is often suggested that this country's diversity has prevented authoritarian rule, but the argument could easily be turned on its head, as it is often was in the 1940s, to suggest that India's lack of ethnic and linguistic cohesion dooms it to disintegration unless kept intact by autocracy. Another view places Hinduism at the root of Indian democracy. Since both independent India and Pakistan were born with a heritage of British institutions and respect for parliament, India's relatively greater success in institutionalizing democracy must stem from Hinduism, pluralism, and tolerance, the argument goes. However, the only other Hindu majority state in the world, Nepal, has a very patchy democratic record, evidence that the Hindu religion has no essential connection with egalitarian government. The Hindutva argument fits well with assertion common in the world at large about the incompatibility of Islam and democracy. Here is the question: how is that India never came under the army's spell? If we think carefully, such things do not occur by accident. It was carefully thought out strategy implemented by Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India. Nehru's achievement is best illustrated by alluding to a series of intents where military and civilian authority were at odds in the subcontinent. The Armed Forces Act of 1958 gives the security forces huge latitude in disturbed areas. Armies love being exempted from the punishment and are unwilling to give it up once they have it. But impunity spurns wanton arrest and killings, which created a backlash that can then be used to justify the continuation of emergency powers, which is why, despite the recommendation of a review committee, pressure by human rights groups, and the wishes of democratically elected state government. AFSPA has persisted in some areas for over half a century. Students, I hope you all have understood this much. We will continue this lesson in my next video. Thanks for watching.